And I never went down where the hogs were. I honestly don't remember us having that many, but that's where they were.
What did he do with the hogs?
Slaughtered them.
Oh my goodness. He did it there?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember that. If he did, he would have had somebody come in and do it.
Uh-huh. You were talking about the chicken house the other day.
Yeah. And I don't remember the evolution of it. I kind of remember it just like it was.
Well, we're talking about a conveyor belt and a tractor.
Yeah, it sat right in there. And that's where they had I think it's called a thrashing machine. They would bring the corn stalks up and feed them into this machine, and it would take the corn cobs off and take the rest of it and kind of chew it all up, and then I don't know how they got it up in the top of the barn.
Well, you had told me last time I was here that to get the hay bales out of the barn, they had a conveyor belt.
Well, what they had is an overhead track with a fork thing that ran back and forth on that track. And you could bring it in and pick up hay. It was mostly designed for hay, really, because it was like that. And then and it was all manual, and you could push it out the back door under this roof and then drop it down. I don't know, on a wagon, or just drop it into a pile and then use pitchforks to bring it back into the barn.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a nice, like you see in the movies, you had 2 or 3 stalls on each side. Right up here in this corner was a room that you could close up, and that was like what they call a tack room, where the saddles and the bridles and stuff like that were kept. I do know that we used to go over to Sedgefield to the horse show grounds and watch the horses, the jumpers, and they'd have, as I remember, like little 2-seat buggy races and stuff like that.
And where was Sedgefield?
Over beyond Jamestown towards Greensboro. It was pretty kind of a high-class operation. This horse show up here is continuing year after year. It's the oldest continuous in the country.
Really?
And they have the stables and the riding rinks and stuff. And a couple, 3 weeks every summer. It's a pretty big deal. People come in from all around, bring their horses.
Uh-huh. So tell me about the chicken house.
I don't remember. It was always there. And he had pins and the metal structures called brooders. And he raised the chickens, and I don't ever remember anything about it being a big production line thing or anything. But we used to have a lot of eggs because I would take them down to the furniture market and sell them.
Uh-huh.
And of course, these furniture buyers from around the country love that because these were fresh,
Yeah.
farm-raised eggs.
Well, you said it wasn't really a production operation with the chickens, but that's an awfully big chicken house,
I know it is.
isn't it? It's really long.
I don't know what his thinking was.
If you had to take a guess, how many chickens would you say he had at peak production?
Maybe 2 or 3 dozen.
Well, that doesn't seem like a whole lot.
It doesn't.
No, not for such a huge house. But maybe it's just because everything he did was grand and over the top, right?
And I'd have to think about it some, but I mean, he had these things were designed like a production farm. And of course, he was a gentleman farmer. He always worked in the furniture industry.
Yeah.
And I don't know where he got all these ideas, but he never was an official farmer. But he had the facilities for it.
You said he actually grew up in the city?
Yes. The original house was downtown and close to the hospital.
The Dennis Hall house?
Yeah, but then he moved out north of the city, and that house is still there.
Really?
It's quite an attractive house.
Is it a big house?
Pretty good size. I have no idea when he did that or how old the children were, but I mean, they had a lot of children. And
So talk about how Paul and Nana acquired all the property that they ended up with. You said they all started with 1 acre.
yeah, Grandpa Gordon, and how he came about having the land, I have no idea. But he had a pretty good piece of land, and he gave each one of the children an acre. And Jim wound up with some acreage, and he had the $2. And as far as I know, Juanita is still alive. Ma and Dave never had any more. Slick and Mary. And Daryl and Edith moved over on Motley Avenue, and all they had was that house and a lot.
Uh-huh.
And Paul and Nana it's pretty amazing if you think about
Yeah.
it. They just kept doing stuff. It wound up with all this, 24 acres total?
Yeah.
Or no, it was 20 acres, and then they sold off 4.
I seem to remember it was 22 acres.
Anyway, wound up with about 16. And it's pretty amazing how they just kept doing.
But it was mostly Oscar, right? I mean, Nana, how involved was Nana with the farm?
I think she was a lot involved. And it's just really too bad that they didn't get along better than they did. I don't understand that. I wish they did.
Well, you had told me one time a long time ago that they fought a lot when you were a kid.
They did. And I always felt like I was kind of in the middle and was kind of the peacemaker.
Uh-huh. Even as a small boy?
Yeah. And it shouldn't have been that way.
That sounds pretty stressful for a child.
And I think if they had been more kids, it wouldn't have been that way.
Yeah. Well, what would they fight about? Do you remember?
I don't, but looking back on it, it wasn't anything that important, really.
Well, what year do you think this particular photograph was taken? Because remember, I showed you the other day the aerial photograph from 1955, and the horse ring, the fence around that big oval horse ring, is completely gone. So we know that this was before 1955.
Okay, so I was born in 39, but they didn't live here. They lived in town, but they moved out here shortly thereafter and built the first half of the house. And I assume a lot of these other buildings around us, so that would have been like 45 to 55.
Well, in the letter that you wrote back in the 90s, you said that you thought the house was doubled in size around 1953.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if Oscar had this photo taken right after he had all that work done.
Probably. Yep. You haven't taken it out of the frame, have you?
I did. I wanted to take some pictures of it as a backup.
I just wondered if there was anything stamped on the back.
There's no date.
My. And of course, I have been to the High Point Museum one or two times, but as I remember, it was a pretty nice museum. And they might have a lot of this stuff in the archives.
Where is the High Point Museum?
It's out on Centennial Avenue. And I don't know. It's behind High Point College.
Uh-huh.
A little ways off to the east.